Baba Ade was a palm wine tapper, and everyone in the village knew that his business brought money. Even though he drank almost half of the palm wine he tapped, there was always enough left to sell. On most days, his pockets were full, and people often wondered how he still managed to save despite his drinking. But his house never felt that money. Baba Ade had a wife and 2 daughters. His wife, Iyadami, was pregnant with their 3rd child. The pregnancy was already heavy on her body, and the stress of the house made it worse. Some days she felt dizzy before noon. Other days, her back hurt so badly she had to sit down in the middle of her chores. Yet, she never rested. Their first daughter, Aderonke, was 10 years old. She was calm, observant, and mature beyond her age. She noticed things adults thought children could not see. The second, Damilola, was 6, lively, playful, and deeply attached to her sister. Wherever Aderonke went, Dami followed. They shared food, secrets, and even dreams. Iyadami carried the house alone. She woke up before sunrise, swept the compound, fetched water, cooked whatever food she could afford, washed clothes, and prepared the girls for school. Even while pregnant, she did everything without help. Complaining had long stopped making sense. Baba Ade, on the other hand, spent very little time at home. After tapping palm wine, he went straight to his small drinking spot near the village square. There, he laughed loudly with friends, drank carelessly, and wasted hours. By the time he remembered he had a family, it was usually late. That morning, Iyadami tied her wrapper carefully and adjusted her blouse before waking the girls. "Wake up," she said gently. "You will be late for school." Ade woke up immediately and helped Dami wash. They wore their uniforms neatly, even though they were already old and slightly faded. "Mama," Ade asked while eating the small portion of food, "when will you pay our school fees?" Iyadami hesitated. "Soon," she replied. "Just be patient with me." What she did not say was that she had been saving every little money she got for her hospital bills. The nurse had warned her that this pregnancy might be difficult. If anything went wrong, she would need money quickly. The girls left for school holding hands. By afternoon, they returned home earlier than usual. Their faces were quiet, their steps slow. "Mama," Kemi said first, "they sent us home." Iyadami's heart dropped. "Why?" "School fees," Ade replied softly. Iyadami sat down slowly. She already knew this day would come. She just did not expect it so soon. "Go and meet your father at his store. Maybe he will give you the money," she said after a while. The girls nodded and walked toward the village square. They were hopeful. After all, their father always had money. When they got to Baba Ade's small store, he was counting bundles of money on a wooden table. The moment he saw them approaching, his face changed. Quickly, he gathered the money and pushed it into a sack beside him before the girls entered. "Papa," Dami greeted happily. "What are you doing here?" he asked sharply. "School sent us home," Ade said softly. "Mama said we should come and meet you for fees." Baba Ade stood up and dusted his hands. He said, "Go and meet your mother." "But Papa," Dami started. "I said, go home," he snapped. The girls looked at each other. Ade noticed the sack beside him, but said nothing. She took Damilola's hand and they walked away quietly. On their way home, Damilola frowned. "Why didn't Papa help us?" Ade squeezed her hand. "Let's just go home." When they got home, the compound was quiet, too quiet. At first, everything looked normal. The small room was quiet, too quiet. Then Aderonke saw their mother on the floor. "Mama?" she called, her voice shaking. There was no answer. Damilola ran forward. "Mama?" Iyadami lay still, her eyes half open, her wrapper soaked and scattered. A basket of corn lay beside her, some already spilling onto the floor. The smell of boiled corn still hung in the room. Aderonke dropped her school bag. "Mama, wake up," she whispered, shaking her gently. Nothing. Tamilola began to cry loudly. "Mama, please wake up, please." Aderonke touched her mother's hand. It was cold. Her heart skipped. She screamed. Neighbors rushed in one after the other. Women covered their mouths. One of them knelt down and touched the Yadami's stomach, then shook her head slowly. "She's gone," the woman said softly. The room spun. Aderonke fell to the floor, holding her mother's body. Damilola clung to her sister, crying until her voice broke. Later, the women spoke in hushed tones. Iyadami had gone out early to sell corn, even with her heavy pregnancy. She needed money for hospital bills. While selling, her water broke suddenly. She managed to drag herself home, hoping Baba Ade would be around. But he wasn't. There was no one to help her, no money nearby, no transport, no voice answered her cries. She struggled alone, and she died alone. Someone ran to the village square to inform Baba Ade. He came home quickly when the message reached him. He stood at the doorway and looked at the body of his wife. "She's dead?" he asked. "Yes," one of the elders replied. He sighed and rubbed his face. That was all. No tears, no cry, no shouting. "This life," he muttered, "it's hard." That night, he slept in the house while neighbors stayed with the girls. Aderonke did not sleep. Damilola cried until exhaustion took her. The next morning, Baba Ade woke up early. He bathed, tied his wrapper, and picked his tapping tools. "Where are you going?" a neighbor asked. "To work," he replied. "Life must continue." And just like that, he left. By afternoon, he was already drinking. The girls stayed inside the house silent. Food was untouched. Their mother's wrapper still lay where she had fallen. That evening, the village gathered to bury Iyadami. Women cried openly. Some beat their chests. Others shook their heads in anger. "This woman suffered," she said. "She tried," another replied. "She deserved better." Aderonke stood beside the grave, holding Damilola tightly. Damilola cried until her eyes swelled. "Mama promised to come back," she kept saying. "She promised." When the earth finally covered the grave, something broke inside Aderonke. She knew life would never be the same. Baba Ade stood at a distance. He watched briefly, then turned away. That night, the house felt empty, too empty. Days passed. Baba Ade continued his routine. Tap palm wine, drink, laugh, return late. He never spoke about Iyadami. He never mentioned the unborn child. Aderonke took over the house. She cooked, fetched water, washed clothes, and took care of Damilola. School no longer mattered. Hunger became normal. At night, Damilola cried quietly. Aderonke held her and cried silently too. One evening, as Baba Ade drank with friends, someone laughed and said, "At least you are free now." He laughed back. From that moment, Aderonke knew something painful. Their father had already moved on, but they were still trapped in their loss. And worse, they were now completely alone. Life became harder after the burial. Food stopped coming completely. Baba Ade did not change. Every morning, he went out to tap palm wine. Every evening, he drank. And every night, when the house was quiet and the girls were asleep, he sat alone and counted his money. Some nights, he counted 1 million naira. Other nights, 500,000. He smiled while counting. Meanwhile, Aderonke and Damilola went to bed hungry almost every day. Their stomachs hurt so much that sleep became difficult. Sometimes, Damilola cried quietly, holding her belly. "Aderonke," she whispered one night, "maybe Mama will come back." Aderonke turned her face to the wall so her sister wouldn't see her tears. One afternoon, hunger became unbearable. The girls had not eaten since the previous day. Baba Ade was not home. "I'm hungry," Damilola said weakly. Aderonke nodded. Let's check the house. Maybe Mama left something. They searched everywhere. Pots, cupboards, bags, nothing. Then Aderonke noticed a wooden box pushed under their father's bed. She hesitated. What is that? Damilola asked. I don't know, Aderonke replied. She dragged it out slowly and opened it. Inside were bundles of money. Their hearts jumped. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Damilola started crying. Why would Papa do this? She asked. Why would he let us be hungry? Aderonke's eyes filled with tears too. Not tears of joy, but pain. They did not touch the money. They closed the box carefully and pushed it back. Let's go and meet Papa now, Aderonke said gently. Maybe he will help us now. They walked to his store with weak legs and tired faces. Papa, Aderonke said gently, we haven't eaten. Baba Ade frowned. Go home. Please, Damilola added, we're hungry. He waved them away. Go and meet your mother. Their hearts sank. They turned and walked away slowly. They were not raised to steal. Even with hunger burning inside them, they never touched their father's money. Instead, Aderonke held her sister's hand and said, let's go and meet our teacher. They went straight to Miss Rachel's house. Miss Rachel was their teacher. She was kind and gentle. When she saw the girls, she knew something was wrong. Come inside quickly, she said. They sat down and told her everything about their mother, their hunger, and the box full of money. Miss Rachel covered her mouth in shock. You found money, and you still didn't take it, she asked. Aderonke shook her head. Miss Rachel pulled them into a tight hug. You girls are stronger than you know, she said softly. And as she held them close, a thought formed in her mind. Something had to be done, and soon. Miss Rachel did not have much. Her teaching job paid little, just enough to survive. Some months, she had to borrow money before salary came. Other times, she skipped meals so she could buy chalk or books for her pupils. Still, she had a soft heart, and that was something money could not buy. When Aderonke and Damilola begged to stay with her, she felt torn. Please, Miss Rachel, Aderonke said low. We can't go back there. We don't want to see Papa. Damilola nodded quickly. We'll help ourselves, we promise. Miss Rachel looked at their thin faces and tired eyes. She sighed deeply. You can stay, she finally said. The relief on the girls' faces was immediate. They hugged her tightly, crying quietly into her wrapper. From that day, Miss Rachel's small room became fuller and heavier. The girls truly tried to keep their promise. They woke up early every morning. Aderonke went from house to house, asking if anyone needed clothes washed or floors swept. Damilola followed her, carrying buckets that were sometimes too heavy for her small arms. Some days, people helped them. Other days, doors were shut in their faces. They tried farming too. They borrowed a small piece of land and planted vegetables, but the crops dried up before they could harvest anything useful. They returned home tired every evening, hands empty, stomachs aching. I'm sorry, Aderonke would say to Miss Rachel. Miss Rachel always smiled. You are trying, that's enough. But inside, she was worried. Food finished quickly in her house. Water bills increased. Neighbors noticed. Soon, whispers started. Have you seen those girls? They've left their father's house. Now they're staying with their teacher. Is it her responsibility? That Baba Ade, he's wicked. The gossip spread fast. Some blamed Baba Ade openly. Others shook their heads and said the girls were now a burden. Miss Rachel heard the talks at the market, at school, even in church. One evening, she returned home looking tired. Aderoke noticed immediately. Did something happen? She asked. Miss Rachel forced a smile. Nothing. But later that night, as the girls slept, Miss Rachel sat alone and thought deeply. She thought about Baba Ade counting money while his daughter starved. She thought about Iyadami dying alone.
she thought about two young girls walking like adults and still going hungry. By morning, her mind was made up. She had a plan, and whatever it was about to change everything. Miss Rachel did not rush her plan. She knew Baba Ade very well, his habits, his pride, and most of all, his weakness. Money made him feel important. Attention made him feel powerful. All she needed was patience. So every evening after school, she passed by Baba Ade's shop. At first, it was just greetings. "Good evening," she would say with a smile. "Good evening, madame," Baba Ade replied, eyeing her curiously. Soon, greetings turned into small talk. Small talk turned into laughter. Laughter turned into long gists that lasted until the sun went down. Baba Ade did not know who she was. To him, she was just a charming, soft-spoken woman who liked listening to him talk. He liked that. He liked how she laughed at his jokes. He liked how she asked about his business. He liked how she made him feel important. Before long, he started spending money on her. "Take this," he would say, slipping money into her hand, "for transport." The next day, he gave her more. Soon, it became normal. Every day, Baba Ade gave her money. Every week, he paid her allowances. Miss Rachel never refused. She accepted everything calmly, storing each detail carefully in her heart. Months passed. Their closeness became obvious. People began to talk. She and Baba Ade are always together. He's changed his drinking spot. He spends more money now. One evening, Baba Ade cleared his throat and said, "I want to marry you." Miss Rachel did not act surprised. She had been waiting for that moment. "I will think about it," she replied calmly. Inside her heart, she smiled. The plan was working. A few days later, she agreed to talk. That evening, she sat across from Baba Ade, her face serious. "There's something you must know before anything happens." Baba Ade waved his hand. "Anything you want, I will do it." She looked straight into his eyes. "I am Miss Rachel. I am the teacher taking care of your daughters." The smile on his face froze. "Aderonke and Damilola?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "They have lived with me since they left your house. I fed them when they were hungry. I watched them cry for their mother. I watched them starve while you counted money." Baba Ade shifted uncomfortably, but he did not walk away. Instead, he sighed. "Those children, they are stubborn." Miss Rachel leaned forward. "If you want to marry me, you must take full responsibility for them. Food, school, care, everything." Baba Ade thought briefly, then nodded. "I agree." He was already too deep, too attached, too in love.
Miss Rachel stood up slowly. "Every man has a weak point," she said quietly, "and I will be yours." The next morning, she called Adironke and Damilola into her small hut. "I have something to tell you," she said gently. The girls sat quietly. "It is time for you to go back to your father's house," Miss Rachel continued. Damilola gasped. "Papa?" "Yes," she replied, "but things will be different." She told them everything, how she met Baba Ade, how she made him promise, how far she had gone for their sake. Aderonke's eyes filled with tears. "You did all this for us?" Miss Rachel nodded. The girls hugged her tightly. They were happy. They were finally going home, and they were going with the woman they now saw as their new mother. But as they packed their few clothes, none of them knew one thing. This was not the end of their problems. It was only the beginning of a new chapter. After everything was settled, Aderonke and Damilola moved back into their father's house. Not long after, Baba Ade married Miss Rachel. The small wedding was quiet, simple, and attended by a few villagers who were still surprised by the sudden change in him. To many, it felt unreal. Baba Ade, the same man who once abandoned his children, now standing proudly beside their former teacher as his wife. Life slowly became different. People noticed it before the girls fully understood it. Baba Ade changed. He started coming home early. He stopped sleeping outside. He reduced his drinking. At first, the villagers did not believe it. "Is that Baba Ade?" someone asked one evening. "The same man?" another replied. He now brought food home without being asked. He paid the girls' school fees on time. When Damilola needed books, he bought them. When Adironke fell sick, he took her to the clinic himself. The girls stopped begging. For the first time in their lives, they did not have to ask before eating. Miss Rachel watched quietly. Some villagers began to gossip again. "That woman used something on him. No man changes like that without his spell. She must have tied him spiritually." Miss Rachel only smiled when she heard such talks. Inside the house, peace slowly grew. Baba Ade treated Miss Rachel with care. He listened to her. He respected her words. When she spoke, he paused. When she advised him, he followed. Years passed. The girls grew. Adironke became calm, wise, and strong. Damilola became bold, confident, and outspoken. By the time they turned 20, they were no longer the hungry children people once pitied. They were women. Miss Rachel loved them deeply. She corrected them, encouraged them, and protected them like her own. She attended their school events and celebrated their achievements. But there was one thing missing. Miss Rachel never had a child of her own. At first, people waited, then they waited longer, then they stopped waiting and started talking. Why has she not given birth? Maybe she can't. Maybe Baba Ade's children are enough for her. Miss Rachel heard everything. She smiled through it all. At night, when she was alone, she placed her hand on her stomach and sighed. No one knew what the problem was. Even Baba Ade avoided the topic. So she poured her love into Adironke and Damilola. "These are my children," she told herself. She felt settled. She felt fulfilled. But somewhere ahead, life was quietly preparing a test she never saw coming. And when it came, everything she believed she had built would be questioned. It happened on an Eke market day, the kind of day the whole village never forgot. From early morning, the market was already full. Women spread their wares on mats, men argued loudly over prices, children ran around with excitement, and drums sounded from different corners. Then the town crier climbed the wooden platform at the center of the market. "Attention! Attention!" his voice rang out. People slowly went quiet. "The prince has spoken. Today, he will choose a wife from among the young women of this village." For a few seconds, the market was silent. Then noise burst out everywhere at once. Excitement, shouting, laughter, whispers. Every compound talked nothing else about it. In Baba Ade's house, Adironke and Damilola had grown into two remarkable young women. At 20, they were not only beautiful, but respected. They greeted elders properly, helped younger ones, and carried themselves with grace. Many people admired them, not just for their looks, but for their character. When the news reached them, Damilola laughed and clapped her hands. "Can you imagine? One of us might become a princess." Adironke smiled, but her heart was beating fast. She had admired the prince since she was a child. She remembered seeing him ride through the village during festivals, standing tall and calm. She never told anyone, but the feeling had stayed with her. Damilola noticed. "You love him more than I do," she said honestly. "Mine is just a small crush. If it's you he chooses, I'll be happy." Adironke hugged her sister tightly. "Thank you. I'll never forget this." But while joy filled the sister's heart, bitterness quietly entered another.
Miss Rachel, their stepmother, heard the announcement and smiled, but only on the outside. Inside, something twisted painfully. She had raised the girls, she had trained them, she had shaped them into who they were today. She had sacrificed so much for them. Yet, they were not her children. If one of them becomes a princess, she thought, she will leave this house. Fear followed jealousy. What if they forget me? What if I end up alone? The thoughts grew darker. "They bewitched me. It's their fault I can't bear children of my own," she whispered to herself one night. That must be it. Her behavior slowly changed. She became sharp with her words, cold with her looks, short-tempered over small things. The girls noticed. "Mama," Aderonke asked one evening, "did we do something wrong?" Miss Rachel turned away without answering. They told Baba Ade. "I don't understand it," he said honestly. "Give her time." But time only made it worse. One afternoon, Miss Rachel called Damilola into the room. "Sit," she said. Damilola obeyed. "Do you like the prince?" Miss Rachel asked suddenly. Damilola nodded. "Yes, but not deeply. My sister likes him more. I want her to." "Why should you allow that?" Miss Rachel snapped. Damilola froze. From that day, Miss Rachel began whispering words that slowly poisoned the sisters' bond. She told Damilola not to let Aderonke take everything. She told Aderonke not to trust Damilola. Confusion grew. Jealousy crept in. Damilola began to feel angry for reasons she couldn't fully explain. She started avoiding her sister. She felt torn inside, her mind heavy with thoughts planted by someone she trusted. Then, the day of the contest arrived. The entire village gathered. Drums beat loudly. Young women dressed in their finest wrappers and beads. Elders sat at the front. The prince watched calmly. When it was almost time for Aderonke to dance, Damilola suddenly stepped out of the crowd. Gasps filled the air. People whispered in shock. "She wants to disgrace her sister. They are fighting." Aderonke froze in fear. But instead of attacking, Damilola knelt. She faced Miss Rachel. She said loudly, "I want to speak." The crowd quieted. "I want to thank you," Damilola continued. "You loved us, you raised us, you saved us when no one else did." Miss Rachel trembled. "But I need to ask," Damilola said, her voice breaking. "What changed? Why did you start hating us?" Tears streamed down Aderonke's face. "We will never forget you," Aderonke cried, her voice shaking as tears ran freely down her cheeks. "You raised us when we had nothing. You fed us when we were hungry. We won't leave you behind. Please, please don't hate us." She stepped forward and knelt beside her sister. "We only want peace," Aderonke continued. "You are our mother. No matter what happens today, that will never change." The crowd went silent. Miss Rachel's legs began to shake. Her chest felt tight, like something heavy was pressing it down. All the bitterness she had been hiding suddenly felt foolish, small, and shameful. She remembered the night she held the girls when they cried, the days she washed their clothes with tired hands, the promises she made to protect them. And she remembered the jealousy that almost ruined everything. Miss Rachel fell to her knees. She covered her face and sobbed openly. "Forgive me," she cried. "I allowed fear to enter my heart. I was afraid of losing you. I almost let jealousy destroy the family I prayed for." She crawled forward and held both girls tightly. "I am sorry," she repeated again and again. Women in the crowd wiped their eyes. Even some of the men shook their heads slowly. "This is love," someone whispered. "This is forgiveness," another replied. The elders nodded in approval. The drums sounded again, but softer this time, calmer, joyful. The contest resumed. Aderonke rose slowly, wiped her tears, and stepped forward. Her movements were gentle but confident. As she danced, it felt like she was telling her whole story: pain, survival, love, and grace. The crowd watched closely. When she finished, the prince stood up. He walked toward her. "I choose you," he said. The village erupted with joy. Cheers filled the air. Drums beat loudly. Women ululated. Damilola hugged her sister tightly, laughing and crying at the same time. Miss Rachel stood up slowly and smiled through tears. She hugged Badadi, and tears of joy rolled freely. The entire village was happy for them. Peace had returned, and love truly won. You saw how Babade changed and treated Miss Rachel with care and responsibility.
That is how you know when a man truly loves a woman. Love shows in effort, consistency, and action, not empty words. Please, women, you do not need to stay where there is no love. If a man makes no effort, takes no responsibility, and leaves you to suffer alone, then love is not present. No matter the excuses, love will always show itself through care. Iyadami lost her life while carrying the burden of the children they both brought into the world. Yet, Baba Ade remarried and treated his second wife right because that was where his love truly was. Let this be a reminder. Never beg for love and never remain where you are not valued.